This is the tragic story of Indian Airlines Flight 605, which crashed onto a golf course while attempting to land at Bangalore Airport. February 14, 1990. Valentine's Day. For most people, it's a day of love and celebration. But for the passengers of Indian Airlines Flight 605, it would become a day of tragedy. Flight 605 is a routine domestic flight, traveling from Bombay, now Mumbai, to Bangalore. The Airbus A320 is one of the most advanced aircraft of its time, boasting state-of-the-art automation. Flight 605 carried 139 passengers and 7 crew members, consisting of 2 cockpit crew and 5 cabin crew. The pilot who controlled the flight was Indian national, Captain Cyril Fernandez at 46 years old. He had a total flying experience of 9,307 hours, of which 68 hours were spent on the Airbus A320. The pilot who supervised Captain Fernandez was Indian national, Captain Satish Gopujkar at 44 years old. Captain Gopujkar had a total flying experience of 10,340 hours, of which 255 hours were on the Airbus A320. During the flight, he was carrying out the duties of both the co-pilot and the check pilot. The aircraft involved was an Airbus A320-231, registered as VTEPN, serial number 79, and was around 5 months old. The aircraft had logged around 370 flight hours over 302 flights and was equipped with 2 IAE V2500A1 engines. The pilots were actively preparing the aircraft for departure. Once ready, they requested pushback and engine start. They then taxied towards the runway, making final preparations for takeoff from Mumbai Airport. At 11:58 a.m., the engines roar to life. The aircraft accelerates down the runway, lifting gracefully into the sky. The journey begins smoothly, no turbulence, no complications. The flight climbs to 30,000 feet, cruising effortlessly. Below, the vast Indian landscape stretches endlessly, with rivers snaking through the earth like veins. The flight is expected to land in Bangalore by early afternoon. As they approach Bangalore, the pilots prepare for a manual landing. It's a clear day, and they decide to rely on their skills instead of the fully automated system. But as they adjust the controls, a simple mistake sets off a deadly chain of events. Instead of selecting the correct glide slope mode, the pilots accidentally engage open descent. This mode reduces engine thrust to idle, relying on gravity to bring the aircraft down. At first, nothing seems wrong. But as the plane continues its approach, it's sinking too quickly, faster than it should. And the pilots don't notice.
1,000.
This should have been a final checkpoint, a moment to ensure everything was in order. But the pilots, focused on their visual approach, don't realize they are still in idle power. At 800 feet, the first officer finally notices something is wrong. The aircraft is too low. He calls it out to the captain. But time is a luxury they no longer have. The aircraft is still sinking. The pilots pull back on the controls, trying desperately to arrest the descent. But it's too late. At 12:48 p.m., Flight 605 slams into the ground. The plane crashes onto the golf course, skidding across the grass, tearing through trees, and breaking apart. After the crash, a post-impact fire erupted as survivors scrambled to escape the burning wreckage. Several passengers managed to exit through a gap in the aircraft's fuselage, while the surviving cabin crew swiftly opened the emergency door to assist in the evacuation. Tragically, 92 people, 88 passengers, and 4 crew members lost their lives in the disaster. Among the 54 survivors, all sustained. The Indian Ministry of Civil Aviation ordered an investigation into the crash. Investigators analyzed data from both flight recorders and reconstructed the sequence of events leading to the crash of Flight 605. The aircraft was in open descent E mode as it approached Bangalore Airport, a setting in which the engines remain at idle throttle. This mode causes a noticeable reduction in engine noise, making it seem as if the aircraft is gradually sinking. Upon sighting the runway, the flight crew disengaged the autopilot and made contact with Bangalore Tower. At 1:40 p.m. local time, the aircraft's display indicated an altitude of just under 5,000 feet, with its approach path 600 feet higher than the standard glide path. Recognizing this deviation, Captain Fernandez suggested executing a go-around to climb to 6,000 feet, circle back, and realign with the correct glide path. However, the Czech pilot, Captain Gopujkar, questioned the decision, asking, "Do you want to go around? Or do you want vertical speed?" Captain Fernandez opted for the vertical speed adjustment instead. Investigators later determined that had the crew proceeded with a go-around, the impending disaster could have been avoided. To correct the aircraft's higher-than-normal approach, Captain Fernandez requested a steeper descent rate of 1,000 feet per minute, compared to the usual 700 feet per minute. While this adjustment helped the aircraft regain the proper glide path, it also increased its speed to 148 knots, exceeding the recommended approach speed of 130 knots. Despite this, the aircraft was now in the correct vertical speed mode for landing. As Captain Gopujkar reviewed the landing checklist, he instructed the cabin crew to take their seats. At 1:42 p.m., believing the aircraft had stabilized on the correct glide path, he attempted to adjust the descent rate to 700 feet per minute. However, instead of selecting the vertical speed knob, he mistakenly turned the altitude knob, inadvertently commanding the aircraft to descend to 700 feet instead of maintaining a controlled descent rate. The vertical speed knob and the altitude knob are positioned close together and share a similar design, which may have contributed to the error. This mistake switched the aircraft back to open descent mode, causing the throttles to return to idle and resulting in a rapid loss of airspeed. Unaware of this critical error, the crew failed to take corrective action. As the aircraft descended, the radio altimeter issued a warning, 400 feet. 4. At this point, Captain Gopujkar suddenly realized the aircraft was still in idle thrust and remarked, "You are descending on idle open descent." Moments later, as the altimeter called out 300 feet, he asked, "You want flight directors off now?" Captain Fernandez confirmed that his flight director was off, but Captain Gopujkar's remained on. Investigators later concluded that had both flight directors been turned off at that moment, the aircraft would have switched to speed mode, allowing the engines to generate enough thrust for a potential recovery, even in the final seconds. At 135 feet, Captain Fernandez suddenly grasped the gravity of the situation and shouted, "Hey, we're going down!" A shocked Captain Gopujkar could only respond, "Oh, shit." Fernandez immediately commanded Toga to apply maximum thrust in an attempt to save the aircraft. The engines responded, and the aircraft briefly lifted from the ground. However, it was too late. The plane failed to clear a 12-foot, 3.7-meter embankment and crashed. The investigation reveals that pilot error, coupled with a misunderstanding of the aircraft's automation, led to the tragedy. The open descent mode had cut power to the engines when they needed it most. The warning signs were there, but they went unnoticed until it was too late. The accident led to major changes in pilot training. Airlines around the world emphasized the importance of understanding aircraft automation, how it works, and more importantly, how it can go wrong. Indian Airlines Flight 605 remains one of India's deadliest aviation disasters. A reminder that even the smallest error, in the most advanced aircraft, can lead to unimaginable consequences. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching.